What is up, guys? Taft Hardington here for another 19 itemization video. This one going to be talking about Mage. For the purpose of consistency, we assume it's better to stat stack as opposed to stat smooth. This is situational and depends on your set as a whole. And what I mean by stat stacking would be if you have a stam item, you would couple that with a stam enchant, as opposed to stat smooth, where you would have a stam item and you would then have an intellect uh, enchant for mage. All items are bis and in order of preference. We assume armor values and uniqueness variable on the classic DB are accurate, and items are listed in the in-game order. So for mage, at 19, your primary purpose is crowd control. Um, it's pretty much all rank 1 polys, rank 1 frostbolts, rank 1 novas, rank 1 arcade, like just rank 1's everything. Um, and what you're doing is you're not there to do damage because, hunter, like basically every other class can do damage better than a mage. There is a play to play mage as like a glass cannon, a fire mage, and this can be fun and rewarding, but I don't think it's very advantageous to actually winning games. It's sort of a selfish way of playing. But as a fire mage, you can, crit like a fireball for 400 damage, so it can be fun. Um, but I think the best play for mage is to be just fully devoted to crowd control. And when I played mage, it was a lot of fun being able, like, because you can just manhandle teams as, like, 6 people all at once. You can just influence a game so much with a mage by being able to, keep the rogues and the warriors in combat and slowed, um, keeping the healers polyed, that, dropping a nova at the right time is so big. There's a lot that you can do as a mage to influence a game. So we'll just go ahead and get into the items. Um, the first item for Helm is the green tinted goggles. Oh, let me back up for a second and just say that if you'll see in like this listing here, we've got stam items all at the top, because the thing is, when you're casting rank 1 stuff, it doesn't really cost much mana at all. So there's really no need to stack intellect. As opposed, because like at 60, you're stacking almost entirely spell power, um, and then like some int. But at 19, you're really not stacking spell power at all unless you're going fire mage, and then you're really not stacking int at all either, because you just don't need much whenever you're only casting rank 1 spells. So it's pretty much all going to be stam gear. We also show like fire items and frost items in case you wanted to play that. Now, for like a frost mage, you can do that, um, and I would say, that's kind of the in between being like a pure crowd control mage and being like a pure damage type mage. Um, you can stack some amount of frost, but the thing is, if you don't have enough stam, you're going to get owned, like, badly, especially by hunters. So do keep that in mind. It's really all about stacking just like pure stam, and then stacking some amount of spell power if you wanted to do like be like more of a damage type mage. So first item for Helm green tinted goggles. This is from 150 engineering, which everybody should have engineering. 8 stam, 7 spirit, just the basic starter helm. We also show shadow goggles in case you wanted an int Helm from 120 engineering, 6 spirit, 5 int. So if you're gonna go like pure damage, and there isn't an item with plus spell damage on it, like none of the helms are gonna have plus spell damage, you go pure int for the crit that you get, and also the added mana, of course. And for Horde, there's always the hooded cowl, which I think looks really neat on a caster. I know I had it on my warlock, and I just loved it on my warlock, um, because it looks cool for a caster, in my opinion. But it doesn't have any stats, but you can put a Libram on it. And I should say that that comes from the Dangerous questline in Hillsbrad at level 19. And then the last hat you will get whenever the ZG patch comes out and the fishing tournament is out in STV. This is every Sunday at 2 server time. Um, it's a lucky fishing hat, 15 stam, plus 5 to fishing. Great aesthetic on the hat, one of the most stylish in the game. But that 15 stam is nothing comes close to that. As for Librams, I would say now how I play Mage, I play it just a pure stam stack Mage, and so I would always say you go double Constitution even with a lucky fishing hat. But we do show you can go Arcanium of Focus, the plus spell damage on a lucky fishing hat if you want to like stat smooth. But I would argue that just going pure stam on a mage is easily the way to go. But yeah, so we show Constitution with green tinted, we show Constitution with Lucky Fishing Hat, as well as like a second Lucky Fishing Hat with the plus 8 spell damage. We show Rumination with Shadow Goggles. Now, it is important to note that if you are going to go Shadow Goggles for a damage set, I think it's more advantageous to go Focus, the plus 8 spell damage Libram, um, than it is to go 150 mana. Just because you're not going to get any more damage out of extra mana. You're only going to get damage from actual raw damage, plus damage, or raw int in the form of crit. And then we show resilience on Hooded Cowl, just like a fire resist Libram, but really anything goes on that item. For the neck piece, Tarnished Silver Necklace, this drops from the Graves in um, Zul'Farrak. They do it stacks up to 20, so like what I do on mine is I wear 19 of them. You know, just just to wear 19. There's a voice amplification modulator. This is expensive due to the delicate Arcanite converters. Increases your resistance to silence effects by 7%. There are no silences, so this is just for show. These two are purely aesthetic. And then once you are honored with Warsong Gulch, and I believe these rewards come out with the BWL patch, you've got Scout and Sentinels Medallion, 6 edgy, 2 stam. Um, so you should have some benefit from the agility with your wand. And if you're playing like a pure CC mage, that's where your damage is going to come from. It's going to come from wand, but it's the only neck piece at 19 with any stats. So for shoulder, everybody starts out with Talbar Mantle, 6 int, 3 stam. This comes from the Glowing Shard, which drops off the Murloc boss. It's the last boss of Wailing Caverns after you do the escort to end the nightmare. And then once you have the shard, you go to Ratchet. Next to the Flight Master in Ratchet is a guy, oh shoot, I can't remember the NPC's name, but you talk to him. It won't show a quest. You have to talk to him, and you will see an RP dialogue that says, "Tell me about this shard, this glowing shard." And he will tell you about it, and then you go back to Wailing Caverns, but you go on top of Wailing Caverns without like going inside. And on top of there, you talk to, I think her name's Nara Wildmane, on the summit of Wailing Caverns, and she will then tell you to either go to Darnassus if you're Alliance, or Thunderbluff if you are Horde, and then that you will get those. And these are all around like going to be the best thing as well because it's 6 int, and the only other options there's another option for Horde, and then there's no other option for Alliance other than white shoulders. So for Horde, the other option is Ghostly Mantle. This is 5 int, 6 spirit. And really all these are for, if you can see with the enchants here, they're just for if you have a second Nax shoulder enchant. Um, because the stats on Talbar are better in both Stam and Int, and you're really not going to get much scaling with Spirit on a Mage. So, and you also don't really need it because, you know, you have infinite water and you're only casting rank 1 spells. But you get this from Deathstalkers and Shadowfang. Requires level 18. You pick this up in the Sepulcher. Let's see if it has a, yeah, you pick it up in the Sepulcher and you go in and there's that dead body on, like right at the entrance on the other side of the gate. You turn it in there and get those shoulders. 5 int, 5 spirit. And then we show reinforced woolen shoulders. This is in lieu of ghostly mantle for Alliance. If you get a second Nax enchant, and I should say for the shoulder enchants that nobody's sure yet how exactly Blizzard is going to implement these and whether or not they can be just straight applied through the window. And if that's the case, then you'll put your Fortitude of the Scourge on Talbar and you'll put your Power of the Scourge on either Ghostly or Reinforced. Of course, it's totally up to you which one of these you want, but I should say that the Fortitude of the Scourge will be the one that comes up for sale much more easily than Power of the Scourge, because you're gonna have, you know, at least 10 people in raid who are going to want this. The Power of the Scourge is 15 to damage and healing magical spells and increases your spell crit by 1%. So every warlock, excuse me, every mage, every boomkin, if you're bringing one, they're all gonna want this. And Fortitude of the Scourge is really only like a tank shoulder enchant, and even then, most of the tanks are going to want the attack power and crit shoulder enchant for threat. Um, so these will come. This Fortitude of the Scourge will come up for sale for sooner and much cheaper than Power of the Scourge. For the cloak, everybody starts out with Engineer's Cloak, and this is by far the best cloak you can have. This is from the quest is Physics. Let's bring that up. This starts from the same guy that told you about the glowing shard in Ratchet. And at level 16, you can go, Sputter Valve is his name. You go to him at level 16, and he sends you to Stone Talon Mountains to talk to Ziz Physics. Ziz Physics has you go kill operators in the Windshear Crag, who will drop the Reaper 6000 blueprints. And then you ping back and forth between Ziz Physics and Sputter Valve, sending letters. And then eventually you go back to Ziz Physics and he asks you to kill Gorenzo Wrenchwhistle, who is, if you can see where my mouse is, he's right up here. You have to go behind the lake, and he's up at that water wheel that they've created. And you're going to need a little bit of help because Gorenzo is, especially as a mage, he's just going to resist everything. So you will need a group or a higher level to help you kill him. But with 5 stam, 2 int, there really, I mean, there are other, like we can see Firebang Cloak is also a 5 stam cloak. This is a BOE off the auction house with 5 resistance, but I would argue that that 2 int is going to be bigger than that 5 resistance, and this is, you know, free to get. So, and then we also show these other BOE cloaks, 7 fire damage, 7 frost damage cloaks. You'll find those off the auction house. The max roll of 7 has been difficult to find. Um, Now, it seems like the fire damage items go up on the auction house a lot more, at least on my server, than the frost damage. Um, so I would imagine that the frost damage is going to be more expensive. But for the enchant for the cloak, you can do, and we don't show it here, but basically greater resistance is going to be the way to go. Um, Another option would be 70 armor. And the thing is, I can see a gnome using 70 armor over greater resistance, but if you're on, because gnome has escape artist, but otherwise I would go with resistance to all schools of magic, um, enchant, and then I could kind of see gnome going with 70 armor to cloak. We also show lesser shadow resistance enchant or greater fire, lesser. Let's pull that up. The greater fire resistance of plus 15. This is comes out with AQ, um, 15 fire resist. I mean, that's the thing, and the whole reason why you would ever have fire resistance is because there is somebody else on the other faction playing a fire mage. um, and then we also show the shadow resistance there in case there's like a warlock. Now you're not really going to be having too much issue with warlocks and priest as a mage because you'll just be polying them. But I would say greater resistance for everybody other than gnomes, and then gnomes either you can go greater resistance or 70 armor. For chest piece, there are several options. The number one option is going to be tree bark jacket. This is a BOE off the auction house. Now, for some reason, they're like 200, 300 gold on my server, which is absurd. Like, the most I could ever see paying for this would be like 60, 70 gold. So I don't know what's going on with my server, but they're like 200 gold each, and it's kind of dumb. But 6 stam, 10 int, and on almost all these items, you'll see that we prefer the item with more stam on it. Just because, like I said, you're just casting rank 1 spells. You don't really need to stack much int at all. Um, but because this is so much int, and you shouldn't really ever come into a situation where you're running out of mana, but it can happen. Um, but because it's so much int on here, this is why we put it above the other items um, that have more stam on them. And we show greater stats with tree bark because it's a good mix of both stam and int. So we would put, +4 stats on that. For alliance, this is going to be your best stam option cloak. 9 stam, 2 int. Um, for alliance, I would almost prefer to wear this as opposed to tree bark, because you're still getting you're still getting 2 int there, and 9 stam is just amazing amount of stam for a cloth chest piece that also gives you 2 int along with it. This is a reception from Tyran, requires level 17. Um, it's a long quest chain, so you will need to you'll need to start this early. Covert Ops Alpha, which starts from those two little guys right there in Stonetown Mountain, at that little alchemy lab. Um, it's kind of a long quest chain. Oh, hold on, let's go back. Requires these quests as well. An old colleague. It says it requires this. Oh man, this is a I'm sorry, I don't main alliance, so I'm not too familiar with this quest chain. Looks like it starts with Sentinel uh, Thinsil there in Ashtonvale Forest. It's still at level 17, so I would imagine this is going to take quite a while. It's going to go through a lot where you have to speak, kill, and open opens up this. You have to get some stuff, and then it opens that. Yeah, this is a heck of a quest chain. Yeah. Doesn't look like you have to do all that much, but it still is quite a quest chain. Either way, that's going to be a lot of XP, especially starting at level 17. I would hit 17 and just go straight to this. It'll probably take you all the way through 17 and get you into level 18. But for that chest piece, it would definitely be worth 9 stam 2 int. And we would go major health with that. Again, you can go with whatever enchant you want. I would never suggest going greater mana. I would always suggest going greater stats over greater mana. Again, with the same argument that mana itself doesn't help you really in any way to do more damage. It's only like you would want int to do more damage, just to have that little bit more crit. Um, but yeah, we show major health on that for stat stacking purposes. And then for Horde, there is a ritual tunic of stamina if you wanted a stam. Now, if you're lucky, you can find this on the auction house pretty cheap. Um, Most of the time, people don't know that this is like a BIS stam chest piece. And if you're not able to find it, there is another option that is slightly less armor. So that's 38 armor there. And then if okay, come on, what was the name of it? I believe it was blood soaked something. Maybe not. Oh, it's bloody, maybe? Yeah, there it is. Bloody apron. One less time. So I don't really like the aesthetic of. I don't like how that looks. You might like it, but this is a super easy farm out of SFK. It's Razorclaw the Butcher, that second boss there in Shadowfang Keep. Right whenever you go into the actual into like the kitchen, he's the same guy that drops that axe, the Butcher's Cleaver. Um, Very easy to get 45% drop rate on that. 8 stam, 1 less armor. Not as stylish in my opinion. You can see it there as the ritual tunic in my opinion. I think the ritual tunic looks better. Look especially better on a female character as well. um, but yeah, as for stam chest piece as Horde. I mean, chances are you can find this ritual tunic plus 8 for less than a gold on the auction house because people have no idea that it's actually a BIS stam chest piece for Horde. We also show the fire damage and frost damage chest piece, and we show greater stats on that for the damage there. And what's going on with this bar? Let's see. Yeah. So for bracers, 4 stam shimmering bracers, they're all BOE. Um, for whatever reason, we couldn't find, like, I haven't found +4 frost damage bracers the max we've seen so far. There's plenty of shimmering bracers of fiery wrath +6 fire damage, plenty of that. For whatever reason, we haven't seen a +6 frost damage, and I'm just not too sure if it even exists um, on these servers. So, but our number one choice, of course, is shimmering bracers of stam. You can also go a 2-2 if you wanted, but again, I think unless you're going like a glass cannon, if you're going glass cannon, go glass cannon, like, and go pure, spell damage. But if you're not, then just focus on stam for mage and just staying alive because you can really get just owned from a rogue or a hunter if you don't have enough stam on you. And we show superior stam, that's +9 stam enchant to those bracers, and then we show greater int to the fire, and then we show superior stam to frozen wrath. And the reason why there's that difference between the plus spell damage bracers, because when you're fire, you need to be critting. Um, Like that's where like a lot of the damage is going to come from being able to crit on your fire spells. Whereas with a frost damage setup, it's that in between. You're not full glass cannon fire mage, and you're not full stam stack crowd control mage. You're that in between, and that's why we show when you go like a frost damage set, go ahead and go superior stam so that you can still play as that crowd control mage who has high survivability. Um, for gloves, and I know somebody's gonna. We used to have the rugged armor here, the plus 40 armor, but you know Blizzard's using a TBC client, and so they've screwed that up. You can't apply 40 armor anymore to gloves. But for survivability, those would have been the best thing. Now, for survivability, it's either the 7 agility to gloves, which is out right now, and then later down the line, the AQ enchant plus 15 agility will be out, and you will end up using that. But whenever that comes out, you might just go fire or frost power to gloves, because both or all of fire power, frost power, or 15 agility, they're all very expensive enchants. So you might just spend that little extra bit of gold to get frost or fire power. Um, so let's bring it up. The obvious thing, which you're going to see a lot of people wearing Mage Fist gloves. Um, 3 stam, 4 spirit, 5 int. And you'll notice we put Pagan Mitts of the Eagle 4/4 above it, above Mage Fist. And the reason is because when you look at these stats, you can basically ignore Spirit because you're not really using it. 3 stam, 5 int, that would be 8, right? 8 total. And out of a 4/4 gloves, it's 8 total as well. However, the stats are more towards like mage favored for 19 mage favored, um, because you're gaining a stam and you're losing an int. And I think it's pretty clear, like across the board, regardless of what class you're playing, stam always has a higher value in PvP than any other stat, um, and especially on a mage at 19. So I know people would see this and think like, oh yeah, mage fist is easily better than a 4/4, but in my opinion, that spirit really doesn't play much of a role for mage, and stam plays a much bigger role than intellect. Um, Now, if you wanted to go like a spellcasting mage, you'll get null casting gloves. Um, because I know somebody's probably thinking, well, like what about that int for the extra damage? Well, that's a non-issue because null casting gloves are going to result in much more damage than one extra int. Um, that's plus 6 damage and healing by magical spells and effects. I've gone over this before. It's got all this weird info about like where it drops, but let me just show you. Okay, that's not what I wanted to pull up because they're very easy to farm up. Like they're ridiculously easy. What's it called? Wetlands. That's what it is. It's in wetlands. Okay, so this map is showing a bunch of crocs, but that's not what I want to show you. I don't need that many dots on the map. It's gonna confuse things. Oh, come on. Give me a wetlands that doesn't have a bunch. Okay. So if you can see my mouse right now on the screen, where my mouse is starting from right here down this west bank of that river, like down to about like here. Over here there are these gnolls, and there are mystics within these little camps. There are mystics who are like spellcasters. All the other gnolls are non-spellcasting. The ones who are spellcasters drop, obviously, the null casting gloves. Um, so it's a very easy farm, and I would say if you're going to go glass cannon, go with these because that's plus 6. Now, you can also go shimmering gloves of fiery wrath plus 9 fire damage. That's going to give you 3 more damage, but only to fire spells. And You find these on the auction house. Someone might have picked them up on your server and is like trying to sell them for 10 gold. But they're fairly common drop. But yeah, it's a pagan myths of the eagle, or really any 4/4 eagle gloves that you find will be, it doesn't quite matter the amount of armor because you're only wearing cloth across the board. Um, and your survivability isn't going to come from armor, it's going to come from stam on a mage. Say those are going to be the best for crowd control. Really wouldn't advise Mage Fist for much of anything for Mage, but we just show it there just because people are going to wonder about it. And then null casting if you want to go uh, glass cannon, or fiery wrath if you want to be a pure fire mage. So for belt, it's you see we've got bright belt and Keller's girdle. It's kind of similar to the 4/4 eagle and the mage fist gloves for glove. Um, but the biggest why we show Keller's now above the stam is because of the amount of intellect overrides the difference of one stam. So if we look at bright belt, that's a 4/4, and these are super cheap off the auction house. A 4/4 there, int stam, and then Keller's girdle is 3 stam, so it's one less, but 8 intellect, which is double the amount of intellect on the belt. And it's also a very high roll for any stat on a belt item at level 19. And whenever you've got 4 more int, I would argue that 4 more int is going to be a greater benefit to you than 1 stam. But but yeah, and also the bright belt is going to be way cheaper than Keller's. But again, it seems to be really different on all the servers, like the prices of these items, and you would think it would be more kind of like mainstream, but I don't know. Sometimes, like I bought a Keller's girdle belt for 9 gold, and bright belt's probably, like 1 gold at max. But you could basically go either of these, and it wouldn't be that big of a deal whichever way you went. Um, so yeah. And then we show the Greenweave Sash Fiery Wrath, +9 fire spell damage for the Fire Mage. I don't believe there is frost damage belt. I believe it's only fire. Fire, arcane, and some other. I can't remember the other. I think there's like 3 classes of or schools of magic that apply to the belt at 19. For legs, your best option on Horde, the only option on Horde is going to be Darkweave Breeches. These are going to be kind of expensive off the auction house. They're BOE, 6 spirit, 7 int, 4 stam. Not much stam on these, but that's okay. I mean, the 7 int is quite a bit of intellect. And I also like how they look. They're just like a solid, it's like a solid, I guess that'd be purple, um, dark purple. But yeah. On Alliance, you've got a better option for a stam stack leg, and those are going to be the Pious Leggings. That's a whole 4 more stamina. Um, you're losing all the int, but that's fine. Again, int's really not that important unless you're going glass cannon. You get this fairly early. Requires level 13 there for the last one. It is a bit of a quest line, as you can see. It starts with the Tower of Althalax, there in Darkshore, at that Aberdeen, that little seaport town. What do? You go through, you kill some stuff, letter, you get a soul gem there. Looks like quite a bit of a quest line. But you can do it, looks like at level 13, so it's not that bad. But yeah, Pious Leggings, 8 stam, big stam on those. 7 int, that's quite a bit of, or sorry, 7 spirit, that's quite a bit of spirit. Um, but again, spirit's not really that important. So yeah. And then of course we show the 11 fire spell damage. And for the legs, again, we don't show the 150 mana Libram. Um, it's always going to be Constitution on the legs because stam is just so important. Unless you're going pure spell damage, then you can get Arcanium of Focus on that. For the boots, and I should go ahead and explain this as well. With the boots, whenever ZG patch comes out, from when it comes out until next patch, that amount of time, the Heart of Hakar buff, the world buff that goes out, should persist through death unless Blizzard screws it up. It should persist through death until once next patch comes out, it will no longer persist through death. So what this world buff Heart of Hakar does is it gives you it's either 10% to stats and 15 movement, or it's 10% movement and 15 to stats. 15%. Not exactly sure, but it doesn't really matter which way it goes because minor speed, minor movement to boots is an 8% movement uh, effect. So regardless if it's 10 or 15 movement, it's going to override minor speed. And when you have that buff, you don't necessarily want to be wearing boots that have minor speed on them because that enchant minor speed will be overridden by the world buff. And you're also not going to get any bonus from the by either the 10 or 15% to stats. So that's why you see we show a greater stamina on Nat Pazule's Extreme Anglin. Now you can get two of these boots. One for when you don't have the Heart of Hakar world buff, and one for when you do have the Heart of Hakar world buff. But starting out, you will be wearing Greenweave Sandals of Stamina. That's plus 6 stam. Very easy to find on the auction house. I've got like 4 or 5 pairs just because someone threw it up for 20 silver, and I was like, might as well just snag it. Um, so very easy to find. There's also the Sanguine Sandals, and these are going to be a little bit more expensive because these are BIS items for Priest. These boots, 4 stam, 4 intellect. There's 2 less stamina than the Greenweave plus 6, but you do gain 4 int. Um, and then we also show there the frost damage boots. I don't believe there are fire damage boots. And then when ZG patch comes out, the same thing with the fishing hat. You can also fish up these Nat Pazule's Extreme Anglin boots, and these are by far the best boots for a mage. And I would argue these are better, you know, even if you are gonna do that like in between like frost damage type of mage, I would say even then like the Nat Pazules are gonna be better. Just because it's such a ridiculous amount of stamina to be picking up. But yeah, you catch these the same way. You catch the boots the same way you catch the hat. Um, but yeah, and then obviously we show Goblin Rocket boots. Any engineer, I believe it requires engineering. Oh no, it doesn't require engineering. Yeah, but you need an engineer to make these. I don't know if I really have to explain what rocket boots are. It seems quite obvious in the name. Um, those can really save you, or they can break and guarantee your death almost always. So, um, on to rings. Now, both factions start out with seal rings. Horde is very simple. The Seal of Sylvanas, 8 stam, 3 strength. Starts at level 18. You pick it up in the Sepulcher there in Silverpine Forest. Um, and you pick up the quest at level 18 in the Sepulcher. You go into SFK. You kill Arugel, the last boss in SFK. You get his head and turn it back in at the Sepulcher. You get yourself that 8 stam ring, which is bonkers amount of stam for a ring. And for the Alliance, it's going to be another really big quest chain. An Audience for the King is the last quest that gives you the Seal of Ren, but you can see the quest chain for this is very lengthy, and it starts with the unsent letter, which drops off of the last boss in Deadmines, Van Cleef. He drops, I believe it's a 100% chance to drop off of Van Cleef. He gives you a letter, which you then bring it to Stormwind, and you go through this sort of tedious quest chain. Starts at level 16. And you will, like, by the time you get to the attack quest, you are going to need, like, at least 2 or 3 people level 35 and up. Of course, fewer people the higher level they are to end up doing this quest chain, but you'll definitely need help to complete it. But it's all worth it because you get Seal of Ren, which is 4 stam, 3 spirit, 3 agility, 3 strength, and 4 int. So if you're Horde, you'll wear that. If you're Alliance, you'll wear the Ren. And then the second ring that we would suggest wearing would be the Advisor's Ring. It's just all around really good for casters because it has MP5, which is basically impossible to find. And then it has that 5 spell damage, which is really big for a ring slot at level 19. And then it also has 2 stamina on it, which isn't, that bad. All things considered, this is a very high item level ring for a 19. Um, but if you're not going to wear that, there is other options as well, such as the Lavishly Jeweled Ring, which is a bind on pickup. It drops off of Gilned in the Deadmines. He's the in the foundry, the smelting room in Deadmines. It drops off of that boss in there. 2 agility, 6 int. This is if you feel like you're hurting for int, and you want to pick it up, and you're not going to be sacrificing all that much stam to pick up that much intellect. Um, but yeah, and then there's also, now we've got Black Widow Band on here. I wouldn't suggest it really at all, um, because it has negative stam on it. So I wouldn't necessarily suggest that unless you were just a crazy person who wanted pure int for a glass cannon mage, and you're not honored yet with Warsong for the Advisor or Lorekeeper's Ring. Um, but yeah, the other option is the Clay Ring of Stamina. And here's the thing: if you don't if you're Alliance and the Seal Ring, but you just want pure stam, you can go both Blood Ring and Clay Ring of Stamina if you wanted 2 rings that are just pure +5 stam. These are both off the auction house, fairly easy to pick up. Blood Ring is always 5 stam, but the Clay Ring is a random roll, and it can roll up to 5 stam as well. Yeah. Trinket, Arena Grandmaster. I don't know how much I need to talk about this, but Gurubashi Arena and STV, you win it 12 times, and then you turn it into, oh, I forget his name. The guy inside the arena, he gives you this, which is a static 1 dodge with an on-use shield for 750 to 1250 damage, lasting 20 seconds, cooldown 30 minutes. Don't pop this around a priest or a shaman who knows what they're doing. Like if you're Alliance, don't pop it around a shaman because they can just purge it or dispel it. Minor Recombobulator, obviously. Everybody's going to be wearing this. Dispels Polymorph, but nobody uses it for that unless it's on a priest. Um, but most people will use it to restore 150 to 250 health and mana. Engineering item. And then Insignia of the Horde or of the Alliance, which requires rank 2. Let's take a look, see if I... Ah, there it is. There's the Mage one. The Mage one, the Mage Insignia dispels fear, polymorph, and slowing effects. I mean, kind of nice, but the slowing effects is really where what's gonna be good. The poly, I guess, if you lose a poly, but if you know how to play mage, you know to always get the poly off first on the opposing mage. So So for main hand, we hands down are going to suggest one-hander with offhand, and that combo is going to be Nightwatch Short Sword. My internet's being slow right now. Nightwatch Short Sword with the Furbog Medicine Pouch. The Short Sword, BOE off the auction house, 4 stam. It's only really good for a mage. Nobody else uses this. Um, but yeah, 4 stam, and then couple that with the Furbog Medicine Pouch, the 10 stam, the unused does not use because Blizzard doesn't know what they're doing. Um, or maybe I'm just simply wrong, but I feel like this should be unused. They put a level cap on it, which is just like, they had to go in and put effort to script in like requires level 50 to use. It's just stupid. Um, but yeah, that would be the best setup you could have as a mage, for if you're playing what we consider to be the best setup as a crowd control mage. And then you'd get Mighty Intellect on that because there's no stam enchant or anything. So Mighty Intellect is plus 22 Intellect. It's not out yet, but it should be out with BWL. It's plus 22 int there. We also show Shadowfang. Like if you didn't want to go with that sword and you wanted something like you wanted to be a little spicy, we also show Shadowfang, which is a big flex. Spell power, of course, on that. You could even flex even harder and go life stealing or something to it, but it's just kind of silly. Uh, but but yeah, Shadowfang would be. It looks really funny on a mage, and it's just, oh my god, doing that melee damage. Um, we also show these hooked daggers. Now, I'm not entirely sure if we're seeing, like, I've seen plus fours. I've seen a lot of hook dagger plus 4, like fire and frost damage. I don't believe I've seen a plus 6, and that should be the high roll on the hook daggers, but I could be wrong. They might not have them in the game, but keep an eye out if you wanted to go. You know, there are like plus fire or plus frost damage daggers, and the hook dagger is the max roll of the BOEs that have random rolls on them. So, and spell power on those, of course. That's plus 30 spell power. Very expensive enchant, so be sure on whatever item you put it on that you want it to be there because it's very expensive. We show evocators with icy chill. I mean, it's just kind of silly. This is in the event that you're totally and you've got a rogue or something on you, and you can hit him with an icy chill and maybe get it to proc. I don't know. um, there's also another enchant. If you can't afford your spell power, now take a look at these. At what it costs. 4 large brills, 12 greater eternals, 4 essence of fire, 4 essence of water, 4 essence of air, and 2 golden pearls. It's an extremely expensive enchant. It might just be the most expensive enchant. Um, and then on top of it, this formula only drops out of MC, and fairly rare. So like you're gonna have to pay 20, 30 gold on top of it just to have an enchanter do it for you. So there is another one, and that actually just came out with the Christmas, whatever it's called, event. Permanently chain your weapon with 7 additional frost damage. Kind of cute, but it's super cheap. Um, it won't. But yeah, you can see they're very cheap. Greater Mystic Essence, 3 of 3. Vision Dust 3. Large Glowing Shard, and Winter's Bite. So very, very cheap enchant, plus 7 damage if you're not trying to spend 200 gold for the enchant, and instead it's probably like a max of 8 gold for that enchant. So that is an option. But yeah, we've already showed you the Furbog. Now the Furbog medicine pouch, you get this from being honored with the Timbermaw rep, and it's a whole thing on how to farm that. But basically, you have to kill um, Furbogs in Fellwood or in Winterspring, um, and you need to do it when you're dead. Also, what we found is that the more people in the group, um, the more the rep gets split, which is kind of ridiculous. But yeah. Then there's also the Antipoding Rod. 6 fire damage, 6 frost damage, BOE off the auction house, usually like 2 or 3 gold. I mean, if you wanted to be a glass cannon, this would be the one to go with. There's also the Pulsating Hydra Heart, which is 2 stam and 7 fire damage. If you were going to be pure fire and you wanted just a little bit extra stam, you get that 1 more fire damage and you drop the frost for 2 stam. 2 options. Everglow Lantern heals your target for 130 to 166. 30-minute cooldown. Very cool aesthetically. Very cool offhand. 2 different quests. I would just pull up the DB whenever you're going through this trying to figure it out. But I'm pretty sure. Oh, it requires level 19 on Alliance. Requires 17 on Horde. So maybe not. It might not be worth to you to get this uh, for Alliance since it requires level 19. But very easy to pick up level 17 for Horde. The Lay Orb, Mage only offhand. I'd pick this one up as well. Yeah, requires level 10. It's usually like your level 10 quest. Um, restores 80 to 240 mana. This kind of goes into the whole idea of offhand swapping. Um, but I'm not trying to get into the theory of offhand swapping right now. It's also Totem of Infliction. If you want to wear that as Alliance, 1% chance when struck to inflict 75 to 126 shadow damage. It's a lot of damage to inflict. With 50 armor on it, not bad. Grayson's Torch and Dim Torch, just aesthetics. And then the last item here is a very important item, is the wand. It's like a level 30 something item level wand, 1.5 cast speed, that's great. 5 shadow resistance, 1 spirit with 29 DPS. This comes from Black Fathom Villainy for both Horde and Alliance. When you go into Black Fathom Depths at level 18, there is if you know where that first turtle boss is at, it's off to the right hand corner of that turtle boss in his own little cove, and it's like the guy who's like dead on the ground, and he gives you the quest Black Fathom Villainy. Yeah, and then you go and you kill the last boss, get the last boss's head, and then turn it into either Darnassus or Thunderbluff, depending on your faction. Must have Gravestone Scepter. It's the only wand at 19 with any stats, and it's also um, an unreal amount of DPS. So if you're going to play crowd control mage, this is where all your damage is going to come from. So yeah guys, that was it for the mage itemization video. I hope it was informative. If you have any questions, let me know. If you have anything to add, like if you've seen the +6 on the like, or where was it we were talking about? Oh shoot, what item was it we were talking? Oh, that's right, the daggers, the hook daggers. So let me know like if you've seen these +6 or like the max roll that you've seen in the comments. But yeah, guys, that's basically it. Alright, I guess I should mention. This Twisted Chandler's staff. If you don't want to go Nightwatch Short Sword with the Furbog medicine pouch, Twisted Channers would be your next best option. I don't like talking about it because it's like, as a mage, you really should. Like, that's 14 stam right there. But if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to put the effort in to do that, Twisted Channers staff is your next best option for both Horde and Alliance. Well, I guess really more for Alliance. Excuse me. Yeah, this is a BOE. It's kind of expensive, like 30 gold or something on my server. Um, for Alliance, that's going to be the next best thing. And then for Horde, you have, if I can remember the name, um, well, I remember the name of the other item that is rewarded from Leaders of the Fang quest, which would be Crescent Staff. 7 stam would actually be slightly better for a Horde Mage than Twisted Channers because you are getting that extra stam there, and the difference would only be 3 int, while also picking up 7 spirits. So, Leaders of the Fang quest on Horde, I'm sure you've done this if you've ever played Horde. It's it's a little bit of a quest line, but it starts off the Baron's Oasis where let's go back. The Forgotten Pools, where you go up, you inspect this pool, you come back, um, and then you get like dried seeds, and you take them over here to this pool, and then you go back, and then which is stagnant, and then you kill the turtles. And anyway, you end up with this Leaders of the Fang. You got to kill all those humanoid bosses, the 4 humanoid bosses in Wailing Caverns, and it rewards Crescent Staff. So that would be, if you didn't want to go Furbog Medicine Pouch, there is either Twisted Chanters for Alliance or Crescent for Horde. So, anyways, that is it. I'll get started on the race and spec video next. Thanks for watching, guys. Catch you later.